Today we're going to review solving equations. Equations are two expressions that are connected with an equal sign because the two expressions have the same value. And just to remind you, I don't think I need to, but with an equation, whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other side. So take 4x plus 7 equals negative 15. What do we do to solve this equation? Subtract 7. That will give us 4x equals negative 22. And sorry. Now, how many of you, when you get a decimal answer, you think, oh my gosh, I'm wrong? Yeah, stop. You don't get to think that anymore. Decimals are okay. Decimals are not the devil. So negative 22 divided by 4, I believe it is negative 5.5. Or you can write it as a simplified fraction, negative 11 halves. I do want to show you quickly on a graphing calculator how to do fractions. So we did, what was that? Negative 22 divided by 4. And we get this decimal, negative 5.5. Oops, those of you viewing this, you can't really see this on the, there we go. Okay. To change it to a fraction in the graphing calculator, you push the math button. There's a bunch of helpful stuff in the math button, and the very first option is change it to a fraction, and that will change it to a simplified improper fraction. 2/9 x plus 8 equals 3. The first thing that we would do is subtract the 8 on both sides. So 2/9 x equals negative 5. How do we get rid of times 2/9 on the left side? You could change it to a decimal and then divide both sides by the decimal. That sounds like a lot of work. Multiply by 9 halves. To get rid of a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. And here's a quick review about why that works. When you multiply fractions, you multiply the numerator, multiply the denominators. So 9 times 2 is 18. 2 times 9 is 18. What's 18 divided by 18? 1. And that's what we want. We want 1x. On the right side, you can think of this as negative 5 over 1. So negative 5 times 9 is negative 45 over 2. Here's where I would be strategically lazy. The top number's odd, the bottom number's a 2. I can't take half of 45. I know that. So this is my answer. This is my simplified answer. If you want to punch it into your calculator, go for it. I believe it's negative 22.5. But be strategically lazy. If you don't need to punch it into your calculator, don't. Number 3. What do you think we're going to have to do in number 3? Distribute. Lots and lots of distribution. So distribute the 4. That will give us 12x minus 20 equals. Distribute the negative 2. Remember, negative 2 times negative x is positive 2x. Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16. What should we do now? Distribute the negative. If you've got a negative outside of the parentheses, think of that as a negative 1 outside of those parentheses and distribute. So this is minus 5 and then minus a negative x, which would be plus x. Now, before we start actually solving, it's a good idea to combine your like terms. So I've got 12x minus 20 equals 3x minus 21. Take a moment and finish solving that. If you're watching the video, you should pause the video right now and actually work this out and then play the video. Just saying. My class is being very interesting right now, video people. I tell you what. Oops. Shh, that's a 20 right there. That would leave this as negative 1. Okay, here's another instance where I call this strategic laziness. When you divide by 9, why would you type that into your calculator? Negative 1/9 is obviously a reduced fraction, so don't waste your time. The answer is negative 1/9. Boom, you're done. This is a quick review from geometry. The measure of an exterior angle. So 8x plus 8, that is the exterior angle. The exterior angle is equal to the sum of the non-adjacent interior angles. That means if you take 4x and 5x minus 4 and add them together, it's going to be the same as 8x plus 8. So what they're really trying to get at is that 8x plus 8 equals 4x plus 5x minus 4. So take a moment, combine like terms, solve that equation, get your answer. Did you get x equals 12? Is that the answer to this problem? No. They're asking for the measure of the exterior angle. They want to know, what does 8x plus 8 actually equal? So you need to take that x equals 12 and substitute it in. So 8 times 12 plus 8, I believe that is 104 degrees. So this is an example of make sure that you read your directions, because they aren't simply asking you for x. They're trying to get you to figure out what x is using equations and then do something with it. Okay, number 5 and 6 are probably a little bit new, and they are our last examples for today. And you might be thinking, Mrs. Gilmore, what the heck are you thinking? There's a lot of fractions right there, and I'm really scared right now. Okay, you don't have to be scared, because we are going to make the fractions go away. So, we are going to distribute if needed. Like in number 6, we're going to have to distribute. Number 5, we don't have to. After doing that, you need to multiply each term by the least common denominator. The least common denominator is the number, the smallest number you can find that you could change 3, 4, and 6 into using multiplication. So if you were going to get common denominators, what would the common denominator be? And here's a really, you all are a lot smarter than you think. Think about 3, 4, and 6. What number pops into your head when you think about 3, 4, and 6? 12. 3 times 4 is 12. You can do 3 times 4, you can do 4 times 3, you can do 6 times 2. So you could make each of these denominators turn into 12 using multiplication. So think about the numbers, think about multiplying them together, think if there's a slightly smaller version that you could use. But here, the least common denominator is 12. So what are we going to do with that 12? We are going to multiply every single term by 12. If you multiply every term in an equation by the same number, the equation is still valid. So we're going to do, 12 times 1/3 x, 12 times 1/4, 12 times x, and 12 times negative 1/6. So 12 times 1/3. You can do that in your calculator or think about it. 12 times a third of 12. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So this is 4x. 12 times 1/4 is 3. Don't forget to multiply this little x by 12. So we've got 12x. And 12 times 1/6 is 2. Does that equation look slightly easier to solve than the one we started with? Yes. So take a moment, finish solving that equation. Okay, the next one, you can see the problem right here. 3/4 is outside of the parentheses. If you have a scientific calculator, you can do 3 ABC button 4 times 4 ABC button 5. I don't know how it's going to give you your answer, if it's going to give you as a mixed number or whatever. You could multiply this by hand, so 12 over 20 and then simplify that. Or if you've got a graphing calculator, this is how I would punch it in. Parentheses 3 divided by 4, that is the fraction 3/4, times parentheses 4/5, close your parentheses, and I want my answer to be written as a fraction, so I'm going to use math button and tell it to put my answer as a fraction. You can do all of that in one step in the graphing calculator, and that's kind of nice. So then you hit enter. Distributing 3/4 times 4/5 x is going to give you 3/5 x. So this first term is 3/5 x. Then I'm going to do 3/4 times negative 2. Oops, I forgot to change it to a fraction. Math button, change it to a fraction. Negative 3/2, so minus 3/2 equals 11/20. When I look at these denominators, I start by looking at 5 and 2 and I think 10. But we can't divide 20 we have to leave it as 20 or make it bigger. So if 10 works, 20 works. So our least common denominator is 20. We're going to multiply each of these terms by 20. Now I happen to know that these numbers work pretty well. You can punch this into your calculator. 20 times 3 ABC button 5, or 20 times parentheses 3 divided by 5. Change it to a fraction. But you can actually do this kind of in your head. 20 times 3 is 60. 60 divided by 5 is 12. So this is 12x. There's a minus sign that comes next. 20 times 3 is 60. 60 divided by 2 is 30. 20 times 11 and then divided by 20. The 20s basically cancel each other out, leaving you with 11. So 12x equals 41. So x equals 41/12.